Welcome to Project Purple Sports with our first interview. I'm Zachary Gerstner. I'm on the marketing department here at Project Purple, and I'll be interviewing Seymour head basketball coach Joe Carrfiello, who is in his 21st season. He is an over 1,000-point scorer. They have 2023 and 2021 NVL Copper Division championship titles. They were in the CIAC Division 4 Final Four last year. 2018, they were in the Division 4 Sweet 16. 2017, they were in the Class M Elite 8. Joe, how are you doing today? Thank you for joining me.
Very good, Zach. Thank you very much for having me. I want to tell you guys I appreciate everything you guys have been doing, you and Dino and the rest of Project Purple. Not only, for our team and everything that you've done for the school, but also, what a great organization and all the things that you guys do for that, great cause.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So let's jump into it here. The first question I want to ask is more about how, with you playing and being an 1,000-point scorer, how has, I guess, playing at a high level helped you as a coach?
I think that, being, like you said, this is my 21st year, you have to grow a lot. And I got the job when I was 24 years old. And I definitely think I'm a different coach now than when I was then after recently playing. So I think playing, you can be the best player in the world, but you may not be the best coach. So I think, playing obviously, helps you to a certain degree, but really just learning the game, being in certain situations as a coach, that's where it really comes from. You can see some NBA guys that end up not being the greatest coaches. And you see some guys that never played in the NBA that are some of the best coaches. So, I mean, yes, playing definitely has its attributes as far as coaching goes, but I think it's more just getting that experience, learning different situations, adapting to your teams. High school is a lot different. It's not like college where you can go recruit the players that you want for your system, or NBA draft player that you want, that you think is going to fit your, program. High school, you have what you have. Public schools, at least, you have what you have, and, you have to adapt to those players that you have around you. That's the biggest factor in coaching in the high school aspect of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was looking a bit further back. I was just doing some preliminary research, and you've done a very good job at developing talent. I mean, as you said earlier, a bunch of 1,000-point scorers, people playing at the next level. I mean, it just goes to show that, I feel like you're a good players coach and you're good at developing, I guess, the talent that you have into, going to the next level. And I think you do a great job at that. But where I want to lead into next, actually, is you have 2 kids. You've been coaching them for the past 3 years. So what has that been like? Because I know when I played, my dad coached me and I enjoyed it very much. I mean, what has the dynamic been like on the team?
It's difficult, at this level. I've been coaching them travel all the way up, through their, I guess, maybe when they were like 4th grade, pretty much, even lower than that, like at rec and stuff like that. But it was harder to coach travel because I had high school at the same time. But it has its rewards, and also it has, its difficulties. And the rewards definitely outweigh the difficulties. The difficulties would be that, it's coach's sons, that's why they're playing those kind of things. You don't get too much of that anymore, because I think both of them let their play show that it's not me that's playing them. They have to be on the court. Joey last year was a starter as a sophomore and really, really performed well. I mean, he had game-winning shots for us in the NVL tournament, in the state tournament. So, and it was hard because Robbie wasn't really playing that much, so I think that's where people, kind of realize that, he's not playing just his kids, because, Robbie's really barely playing. Excuse me, Joey's starting. And Joey just took it and ran. Like, let his play speak for itself. I think when we inserted him in the starting lineup after that, we went 10-2. And again, by no means is that all Joey, but he had a lot to do with it. And then Robbie would get his minutes off the bench, and they both earned it. And now Robbie's starting, doing a great job, of course, as a junior.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, last game, both of them were in double figures. Last home game, both in double figures. I mean, Joey just does a great job offensively on the glass, and that's a big piece, that I think he brings. Yeah, second chance points. You can't beat that. So with that being said, your development and then you coaching your sons, This is more for like some of our viewers that maybe want to get into playing high school basketball. So do you have any advice for a kid coming up and trying to make his way maybe to the Seymour starting rotation or just get involved in the program at all?
Yeah, I mean it's very rewarding, and we do camps for the youngsters in the summer, and it's great to see those kids from rec then go to middle school, because I'm actually a teacher at the middle school, so I meet the kids usually then, and then obviously up to me as the high school coach. But just the advice I would have for them is just put the work in. Don't it doesn't have to be 1,000 point scorer. You don't have to be scoring 20 points per game. Coaches look at defense more than anything. One of the ones we just talked about, Robbie, yeah, he had scored the other night, and like a Mike Rossetti. Mike's had great scoring nights for us, but they're two of the best defenders in the league, at the guard position. So, I mean, that means just as much. So if you're looking to get into basketball, it doesn't have to be the guy always shooting a three. You don't want to step into the gym and start shooting 10 threes. Shoot mid-range shots, shoot foul shots. You need a well-rounded game to play at the high school level. And whether that be, your defense first, offense second, you're rebounding the ball and scoring when you need to, it's fine. But I think a lot of young kids get caught up in watching the NBA and all that kind of stuff. And, Steph Curry is the greatest shooter of our generation, but he's also changed the game a little bit for the worse for like little kids like that, where they think they need to come in and just, jack up threes all day. But just stick with it. And the other thing too, like you said, for the little kids is that maybe you didn't make your first, travel team or middle school team or whatever, but just stick with it. I've had kids in the program that didn't play for me their freshman year, maybe came on their sophomore year, played some JV, same thing junior, and then we're starting by their senior year. So, the writing's not always on the wall. You just got to work at it and get better each and every day.
I agree. That's some great advice. I mean, as you mentioned, the game's changed so much, and you look at teams like, I mean, younger, you just watch videos of like all these kids and they're just forcing the threes and whatever. And defense has become like a lost art in some sense.
Yeah, no question.
So with, as we mentioned, you've been a coach for 21 years. What have been, that's a long time. What have been some of the biggest changes you've seen at this high school level? I mean, just in any sort of regards.
Well, besides as far as in the game, obviously, like we just talked about with the three, has become like I guess the main part of many offenses. It trickles down from the NBA and the college, and now even in the high school, where there's a lot of threes being shot in the game. So you have to be able to defend the perimeter. A lot more offenses are spread out with five guys out, and we run it ourselves, like five guys out on the perimeter, and not having like a true big. I mean, we have our five is Injured Paraj, who's probably could play point guard. So we have five guards on the court at the same time. That's something that has definitely changed since trying to post a guy up, score some easy basket inside. Well, the game's evolved as far as on the court. With that being said, and we have, you have to adapt, and we definitely have done that as far as, spacing the court, those kind of things. And it's not just us across our league. We play in one of the quickest leagues in the state. I'd like to say it's up and down. So like one of the things you mentioned about what's changed, well, we have a 35-second shot clock now. So rules wise, that's changed, and it really has made no difference in our league, because I think I've heard of the shot clock go off maybe 4 times in our 17 games. It's just the way our league is. It's up and down the court. So people said, do you think it's going to play in and be a major factor? No, I said right from the start, no. I mean, if you're playing against the zone, maybe, but even that, most teams are up and down trying to get shots up quick. So that's one of the things that's changed. The 35-second shot clock hasn't come into play too much. Last year in the state tournament, some teams tried to slow us down. And I think that would have been a problem for those teams if we had a 35-second shot clock. I mean, they'd win the games anyways, but I think they might have got out of hand a little bit earlier for some of the games, because they did a nice job early on of slowing it down until we got the lead. Then you couldn't do it. So that's a major, it's a factor still, just not in our league. The other main rule this year that was completely different from my first 20 years was that there's no more 1-on-1. So they took away the 7 fouls, and you have now each quarter 5 fouls. Then you shoot a double bonus, no 1-on-1, and then they clear the fouls at the end of each quarter. That one I don't really like as much. I think it's kind of interesting to have the 1-on-1, and if you got to make first to get the second shot, now you're just handed the 2 shots at the 5th foul. So I mean, that's a little different, and that I'm not sure I really like that one too much.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, especially if you have a shooter on the other team who's cold, getting to the free throw line, that allows them to get back into their rhythm. You're pretty much giving them 2 warm-up shots. So I want to stick with this really quick and ask you
Mhm.
about the restructuring of the divisions going on. How has that been, and has that affected your coaching style at all?
So for the NVL divisions, you're
Yes.
speaking of, I wouldn't say it's changed our coaching. I think it's changed the way, maybe the competitiveness in the league with rivalries. For instance, we used to play in a division that was us, Woodland, Oxford, Derby, and Ansonia. Ansonia happened to be in our division again this year in the middle division, so we played them twice. But Oxford didn't come to us this year. We didn't go to Woodland. We didn't go to Derby. Those are where the rivalries are. You have teams like Crosby, played Kennedy once. Played Wilby once. So, and I kind of noticed a little bit this year, like the student sections were down a bit, and I can't help but wonder if maybe that's why, because you're not playing those rivalry games as much. Teams are going to come out and see us play Oxford more than a team is going to come out and see us play a St. Paul or Torrington. It's just the way it is. Those are all great teams. Don't get me wrong, but the proximity of the games have been taken away by this new division setup, and I don't think that's a good thing for our league.
Now, I don't know if this is going to kind of step on. I don't want to get you in trouble here calling teams out, but is there any aspect of where maybe you have teams that are playing weaker teams twice and they're just boosting their records and making themselves look better in the standings, or is that an aspect of it at all? Or
It is. It's happened. It definitely happened this year. But that's also happened in the past. That can happen in the past too. I can even just speak to last year. We went 15-5, and some of the teams in our division were a little down that year, and so we had 8 wins in our division. So you can say that every year, and I'm putting myself out there as it was our team too. Not to say we didn't beat, we beat some Waterbury schools last year. We just had a good team, but if we had played all the Waterbury schools twice per se, then maybe we're not 15-5. Who knows? So that's something that's going to happen every year. But it definitely does come into play, and I think it comes into play more so, like I said, with the rivalries and all. And they did a pretty good job as far as how the NVL tournament is going to be seeded by PowerPoints. So if you were playing in, maybe they used to say like a weaker division, and maybe you had a couple of, quote unquote, easier games. There's no easy games in our league. There really isn't, like in the NVL. So if you beat the top tier team, you got 5 points. If you beat the middle tier teams that we're in, you got 4 points. If you beat the lower division, you got 3 points. So they tried to navigate around, I guess, what you were asking. So that was a pretty good, tidbit of what they did as far as when they redid the divisions.
all right.
So they're not going by record. So the NVL tournament is going to go by PowerPoints.
Okay. So kind of like, I guess, in college basketball, the BPI or whatever, where they're
a lot like that.
Like that. All right. So sticking with kind of this, I guess, experience over the 21 years, we're going to do a quick segment here. Keep it or leave it. I know you touched on some of these things, but like, for example,
sorry, I played a spoiler there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all right. So the 35-second shot clock, keep it or leave it.
Keep it, which is, I didn't want it, but I keep it.
Okay. What about the double bonus with the 5 fouls every quarter?
Leave it.
Leave it. The technical foul rule, now that a player has to come out for a stoppage at least a second.
Keep it. Most coaches do that anyways.
What about, so a little bit lighter note here, the starting 5 handshakes between all the players?
Keep it. It's fun. Fun. You got to have fun too.
Sticking with that theme, how about celebrations after made threes and ones, blocks, things like that?
Leave it.
Leave it. I was going to figure some people don't like that. I know when I played, I would make sure it was known that I was dominating the other person, but I see it. It's an aspect of the game that doesn't really need to be there.
Just to expand a little bit, if you're going to hold your fingers up like a 3 after you hit a 3, that's fine. But if you're taunting the opponent, leave that one.
Okay. All right. So let's jump into a bit of this season. You're 11-6 right now, number 6 in the NVL. Just before I get into specifics, what are your biggest takeaways of the season so far?
It's been a roller coaster, and I say that mainly because of our home court. So we are 11-6. We're actually 5 now because of the PowerPoint thing that I spoke about. So we're 11-6, 5th in the NVL, and we've gotten 1 game so far at at our actual home court, where we're now 11-0 in the last 2 years. We have one more tomorrow, and then we'll finish our home slate. So that's been the biggest, I guess, detriment to this season is we never knew when we're getting back. At first, it was going to be 2 weeks, and it was a month, and it became, a month and a half. So I think that's, we lost a couple of games at home that I would have had to play here, when we were playing them at the middle school. But that is what it is. But I think that's been one of the big takeaways is that even with all that, if we can find a way to beat these 3 good teams, and run the table and go 14-6, and we're only basically 1 game off the pace from last year, and we played, probably a tougher schedule this year. So my takeaway is that as much as it seems like this has been kind of an up and down year, if we can take care of some business in the next couple of games, then we've had a really nice year, and we've set ourselves up for both tournaments, actually.
Honestly, sticking with that theme that you kind of jumped the gun, I was just about to ask you what it was like to be back in your home gym to finish out the season, because a lot of the players that I've talked to, I interviewed Mike Rossetti last week, asking him what it was like to be back in there. The atmosphere is insane. I mean, and he was like, look, it's a great advantage. He said, we're undefeated here in the past 2 seasons.
Yeah, it's been a while since we lost. I would have to go back to maybe the end of 2 years ago. But it's in my opinion, it's the best home court advantage in the league. Just because of the way the stands are, the fans are on top of you. You could have 10 people in here, you could have 100 people. It looks packed either way. And you saw the game the other night. You see the energy that these kids play with. Not to say that they come every night. These kids bring it every night, but it's just a different energy in this gym, and up and down the court fast. And we just played really well in this gym, and it was kind of taken from us for the year. That, we did fine at the middle school, but like I said, there was a couple games that I would have rather play here. But it is what it is. But to answer your question fully, it's just the energy in this gym from the fans and the players, the coaches, is just, I think unmatched in our league.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know when I was doing the stream with Dino, he was like, you may have jumped the gun a little bit in the second quarter when I said, you guys were just steamrolling Ansonia. And I was like, yeah. I think this one might be pretty much over. Dino was like, well, they're a good team. But I was like, yeah, but this atmosphere, it just does something to an opposing team when you're not playing well and you just keep hearing it. It just breaks you down mentally.
And that's what you just said is a key point. And Ansonia is a great team, and they were missing one of their good players. But yeah, it was kind of just getting worse and worse because of just things going right for us. But that's the difference at the middle school and the high school. So we had a couple leads at the middle school where we were kind of just settled in and then lost the lead a little bit. Very rarely do we lose the lead here. It usually just gets worse. But so that's where I think the difference is. And I can't explain it. It's just we've always played well here. And we practice at the middle school. It wasn't like we weren't practicing there. It's just a different environment. But we have to play our home tournament games there, so hopefully we'll be back there pretty soon.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I'm sure it pays off to be home in general. Yeah. But you guys have a home court advantage, like ones I've rarely seen in high school basketball in a while. It was just absurd, the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So I want to jump into, because you do have a bit of an experienced team. I know you were led by some seniors, juniors. So how has it been? And how do you think that's played a big piece into your success so far this year?
So last year we lost Caden Dresdick was our main player at 21 points per game, all-state player. He was actually, going back to what I said before, the guy you could dump the ball inside to and get an easy basket, while at the same time would hit a three for you. So he was a very dynamic offensive player. And you had a Daniel Villanueva, who was also just a great all-around player for us. They were 2 stars, and we had a kid, Charlie Sabry, coming off the bench who gave us good minutes. But we really did have a lot of kids coming back this year, so we knew that we called it unfinished business. That we had this year because we had so many kids coming back. Mike Rossetti and Injit Paraj were all division players last year. I had already mentioned Joey started the last 12 games. He was averaging double figures the last 10 games of the season. Last year as a sophomore. Then you had Cooper Harmerling and Robbie, who played a lot of minutes last year. Dylan Espina, he didn't get to play too much this year through injuries, but he had played a bunch of minutes last year. Even a kid like Shane White, who played a little bit last year, now he's getting more minutes this year. We had a ton of experience. Coming back from last year's team. So we knew we just knew we were a little undersized. So that's why we try and run and press and do things like that. But we did have a ton of experience, and you see a kid like Indra who was averaging, I think, I want to say about 15 a game last year, who upped that now to like 22 a game, and he's just had great scoring outings. He's an all-league player without question. Or there's something wrong with the league if he's not. But he's been a great player for us this year, and he's made that jump from his junior year to his senior year that you need to be successful and continue the success that we had last year. Because we're missing 20 a game from Caden, so somebody had to pick up that slack. And then you had Joey, who's now averaging 15 a game, who picked up the injured slack from last year. So it was a nice little seamless transition. And the kids, they knew we were going to be good. They needed to see it unfold on the court.
Yeah, I agree. And it has been unfolding very well for you guys recently, especially that huge Ansonia win. Everything went right for you guys. And defensively, I'm going to get into more of that in a minute, but that press you guys run is, I swear there was a point where Ansonia turned it over 7 times straight in a row.
Yeah, I watched the film for some other reasons, but then I noticed that I think there was about 4 possessions where they needed to pass half court, but that's this court too. I mean, the middle school is such a bigger court, but this court, when you have a quick team like we do, it just cuts down passing angles, passing lanes, and that press really comes into play on our court especially. But it is something that we try to do because, like I said, we're not big, so we want to push the game up and down. We want to score high. Not that we can't play defense. We've had games where we've held teams really low, especially in our man. But we are a team that likes to push up and down the court, and pressing definitely helps that.
So sticking with the defensive side of the ball, so your team has looked very dominant when they want to defensively. So how do you as a coach keep everyone locked in? And are there, I guess, players that you look to kind of lead everyone on the defensive side of the ball and really pick up the intensity for everyone?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with Michael and Robbie because they're the ones at the top usually, and Joey and Jaquan, they love getting out and passing lanes, and the 4 of those guys talk really well on defense. Indra, too, in the back line, being our anchor, they're getting our rebounds. He's our leading rebounder, but it really starts with those guards. They talk. Robbie likes pretty much anchors our defense as far as being the guy up there telling people where to go and being the talker. And Jaquan, who came to us this year from the Bronx, is his first year. He's a first-year player for us. He's a senior. Unfortunately, wish we had a couple more years of him, but he is a senior, and he just knows the game and talks so well on defense. So we've played man a lot more than we have in the past, and it's attributed to their quickness and the way that they handle themselves and the way they talk to each other on the court.
So sticking with that, I love when I see one of your players take a charge. Do you practice that with them or anything, or do they just have like the knowledge defensively? Because I know you'll see some coaches that preach taking charges, and then there's other coaches who are like, look, just move your feet, whatever, go for steals, things like that. I mean, defensively, how do you are you more of a let's be uber aggressive on defense? Maybe you get a foul here, that's fine, or do you want them to be conservative and pick and choose their moments to kind of make that big defensive play?
We stress taking charges. I mean, that's one of the stats. We have this thing, it's called the Wildcat Award at the end of the year, where you get points for rebounds, you get points for steals, you get points for assists, you get points for taking charges, everything but scoring. So it's actually really close this year. Mike has 106 and Joey has 104. So it's going to come right down to the wire, I think, for this one. But yes, so charges is part of that. We do preach it. I have to say, though, wherever they're younger coaches, we're giving them credit because these kids like a Mike Rossetti and a Dylan Espina, they take a lot of charges. And Robbie and Joey, throw them in the mix. Jaquan now too. Those guys really take a lot of charges. They're not afraid to put their body in the line and take and take the contact. And they know how to do it too, because you can get hurt. Like we were talking about the other day because we were doing a drill actually for charges, and we had Mike demonstrate because you got to get your hands back, make sure you don't whip your neck back and hit the court because some of our guys weren't doing it correctly. And you don't want to see guys get hurt either. But that's a big facet of defense because it will tempt people to not go to the hoop if you're taking charges. So you can take away a little bit of that offensive game from some people.
Yeah, I was going to say, and it's also a huge momentum booster. When I'm calling the games, every time I see a charge, I get fired up, and it just, as you just mentioned, it shuts down the other team, and they're less reluctant to come and try to drive back down the lane.
No, you're 100% right. It's one of those plays in basketball where, everybody gets fired up.
So I also want to stick with defensive. This one, I just kind of thought about it just because I'm going through like all the games in my head. You guys do a very good job at blocking shots as well. And you said it, you're a very undersized team, but for an undersized team, you'll see like your guards getting blocks and things like that.
Yeah.
And what how like I mean,
So they're undersized, but this team has kids that have like amazing verticals. So Mike Rosette, if he was about 2 or 3 inches taller, he'd be, throwing off the backboard and dunking it. He's the kids, has a great vertical. Jaquan, obviously, I think you were there the night calling his dunk. You got excited about that dunk.
yeah, that was
I listened
awesome.
to the tape. And then Joey threw him down the last, couple games ago. And actually, Robbie may have the best vertical on the team, just size wise. So I mean, we have, and then you have Indra, who knows how to use his body well. And he leads our team in blocks. So yeah, there's athleticism there that makes up for our size height wise, and that's how they're getting blocks. They have good defensive positioning, and they have good timing, and then they use their athletic ability. And yeah, we do have more blocks, I think, than we've had in recent years.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, it's such a key thing to have though, especially, if you're undersized, teams are like, oh, we can kind of mouse in the house it, take it to them,
Yeah.
but they're not able to do that at all.
Right.
So I want to shift a little bit now to most people's favorite part of basketball, the offensive end.
Yeah.
And just you guys have so many players that can pretty much turn it on every night. Like I know you have your Injured and Joey who lead the team, but you also get so much help coming from everywhere else. So how do you, as a coach, like keep all of your players integrated in the offense and make sure they don't get upset with maybe they're not getting their touches or something on a given night?
They've been great. I mean, they've been great. Everybody knows obviously Indra is our leading scorer, but if you shut him down, there's a lot of other guys that can score. It's happened on nights before. He got in foul trouble in a game against Kennedy, I believe it was, and he missed a lot of the game because I couldn't get him out in time, and he picked up the fourth foul, whatever it was. And we went a big portion of the game without him. And then, all of a sudden you look up and Joey's got 17 and Quan's got 14 and, Michael's scoring double figures and Robbie, and Cooper Harmon had a big game. So there's a lot of different guys that can score the ball. Like you said, we have a very fluid offense. So guys get a lot of touches either way. I mean, we run plays for Injured. We have plays for Joey. We have a set for Jaquan and Mike and those kind of things. But really the kids are unselfish. They're very unselfish. They just want to win. So they don't. I've never had somebody come to me this year saying, oh, I'm not getting enough touches in this game, coach, or I only had 4 points. Their main objective is what's the scoreboard say at the end of the game. So they are a very unselfish group. So I really haven't even had to worry about it. And they also get touches. They're getting their touches for the most part.
And I was going to say it also helps to have such a fast-paced offense because next thing you know, like I forget, it was one of the games, but you guys had 9 points in the first quarter. Then all of a sudden you put up like 30 in like the first 6 minutes of the second quarter. And I was like, where you guys just
that was the Harding game. Yeah, that was the Harding game. Yep.
But it's fun to watch offensively, especially when you guys are playing fast and you get a chance to have someone leak out, throw down a dunk. I know.
Yeah, that's when we're playing the best. When the ball doesn't touch the court, outlet, layup. That's where, or turnover. I said if we're going to be successful, we need to turn defense to offense really quick, and this team does a really good job of that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm kind of sticking with offensively. I mean, I know you guys have pretty much your main rotation. They all can shoot the three well. I know we kind of mentioned we don't like how everyone's going to the point where they think they can shoot the three all the time. I'm not saying they can't, but what do you do as a coach to make adjustments on a night where you guys aren't shooting well, or how do you kind of get them to settle back down and kind of get back into a mindset where it's like, all right, guys, we can't just be shooting threes all night. We got to score points and we got to, because I feel like that's hard, especially when all these kids are like, I can normally make these shots on any given night and now I can't.
Right. So our success over the last 2 years has been predicated on not shooting a three. I mean, I know last year we probably had the least amount of threes that I've had as a team made and probably attempted to. And then this year we were shooting a little bit more threes than I would like. But when we made our state tournament run, and I had was interviewed, I think it was for like the CT game time or whatever, and they had said, you guys, shoot the ball really well. I said, yeah, because we go to the basket. Shooting, you can get in slumps. Driving to the basket doesn't slump. So you're either going to go to the hoop, get a foul, make layups. We have so many guys that from last year's team and even this year's team that will go to the basket hard and slash and cut and, take guys off the dribble. Very tough team to play man against. So we really don't shoot the three that much. So it's not really an issue. Like last year, we barely shot it. This year, like I said, we've shot more than I would like. We've got a lot of zones against us, so it's a little bit harder to get to the basket against the zone than it is against the man. So, but I think, like the other night, Antonio came up playing a zone and we hit a bunch of threes. So, I mean, it's not that we can't shoot the three, but I always preach to them that going to the basket doesn't slump. Shooting threes can slump.
Yeah, that's some great advice. And I mean, I just feel like, people kind of like you see some of the teams you guys play, they fall in love with the three ball, and sure, they hit maybe 4 or 5 of them like a player, but then they're shooting 4 for like 12, which is still 33%, which is not bad. But it's like, imagine if you took 12 other shots instead.
Right. No, I mean, we played Brookfield, great team. They were 16-4 last year, and we played them in the second round of the state tournament. And they made 11 threes in the first half. We were down 22 points at halftime. I said to the kids at halftime, I'm not even gonna lie, I'm not even sure I believe this, but I said to them, listen, you can't shoot like this the whole game. You can't shoot like this the whole game. It's law averages. They made 2 threes, I think, in the second half. And we won the game at the buzzer in overtime. So I mean, you can't. That was a typical example of what I try to tell these kids, that you can get in slumps. As great as you're shooting, you can get in a slump real quick. So going to the hoop doesn't slump.
I agree. So sticking with offense again, though, I want to get into offensive rebounding. I mean, your team is, for once again being so undersized, you're great at creating second chance points. I mean, Joey, for example, I feel like if the ball's in his vicinity, he's getting it. It's just going to be 2 points for you guys. So as a coach, I mean, is that something? I'm sure you preach offensive rebounding, but is there like a way you kind of go and practice, you show them techniques, things like that, or is it just their athleticism?
We haven't spent a lot of time on it. We do early in the year, but it's offensive rebounding is just instinct and a nose for the ball. Like, I mean, yes, there are techniques, obviously, but like Joey's amazing at it. Like he really is. Like he has a knack, and I've told him since he was little. Joey loves to score. Loves to score. Soccer, basketball. He's always one of the leading scorers. So I said, you like to score? Go get easy baskets. You can go. You see a ball coming off. How many easy baskets did you have the other day, just in offensive rebounds? Probably he had 25 points. I want to say 12 of them were probably just off of offensive rebounds. I was
going to say maybe even more too, because it's like you just
right.
It's so used to watching him just grab the rebound, and I'm like talking to Dino, and I'm like, Dino, like, is Ansonia going to figure out to maybe put a body on him at some point?
So that's what I try to tell Indra too. I'm like, Indra, you also like to score. Go get some easy baskets. He's done a pretty good job of that this year too, as opposed to just hanging out on the perimeter. But it is. I mean, you like to score. Everybody likes to score. Go get some easy ones. Where it's easier for the offense because you see the shot coming up. You know where the ball is coming off, especially if teams aren't boxing out like they should.
Yeah, I agree. So since it's coming up, I think you guys have 3 more games. One just got rescheduled. So since you have 3 more games now, I want to shift a bit to states and the NVL playoffs. So you guys will be going to states and the NVL playoffs. But so what does that feel like as a coach, knowing, like, as you said, 6 out of the last 8 years, you guys continue to make it there and you have this great regular season success? What's it like, your mentality to just have?
That's great, because we had some down years. So you can't take it for granted that you're going to go to the state tournament. It sounds easy to win 8 games, but not when you play in the NVL. It's not easy. So 6 of the last 8 years is an accomplishment that I'm proud of, and also happy for these kids. And we have, like I said, we had unfinished business from last year. They moved us. We were in Division 4 last year. They moved us to 3, but we're still taking the same mindset. Unfinished business. We see paths that we can take that to try and get back to where we were last year. And it's important that we close out this year well, because there is a shot that we can get 2 home games in the tournament, in the state tournament. So that would be, you always want to play at home, especially when you're playing teams farther away. It's better to have them come to you than you have to drive up there. So it is important that we close out these regular season games the way we want to.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, sticking with the same theme. So how are you got kind of preparing your team to like make these runs? Because it's a lot of basketball at the end of the season. You know, you come right from there. Then you have NVL playoff states. They're going on pretty much simultaneously. How do you keep everyone fresh, locked in mentally, and just prepared?
Well, they need to make sure they're focused. You know, we were just talking about this today at the end of practice. That I thought we lost focus a little at the end, and now you got 3 games left in the regular season, and then you're done. Every time you lose, you're out. You lose in an NBL tournament, you're done. You lose in a state tournament, your season's over. And if you're seniors, your career is over. So that's something that we're going to have to be preaching a lot of. And practices need to be all go all the time. We've cut it down now in time wise, so we all go all the time, and we got to be prepared. And I thought we did a really good job last year being prepared for each one of those games. Because as you said, tournaments kind of loop, and we had snow last year, so we beat Crosby in the first round, and then the semis were pushed off for like 3 days. So then we lost the WCA, and we played the state tournament. I think I want to say about 3 days later, and then we played 4 games in about 9 days in the state tournament. We lost in the semis, and I do think we ran out of gas a little bit, but the weather didn't help with the tournaments last year because it got a little hectic at the end of last year. It was great the whole regular season, and it got a little hectic for the state tournament and the NBLs. Hopefully that's not the same case this year, but it is something that you have to preach to the kids, because it's not like the regular season. Oh, we made some mistakes. Now we got to bounce back. There is no bouncing back if you're losing these tournaments.
Yeah, no, I mean, and honestly, I feel like you guys do a good job at staying locked in and keeping the intensity, just from what I've seen. But as you mentioned, there are some games that you've had at the middle school that you've had leads, and then you just can't. You got to stay locked in.
Yeah, I mean, we've done it to teams last year. We did it to teams this year, and now it's happened to us. So I mean, you got to stay locked in. You can't take one good quarter doesn't mean anything. 32 minutes in a basketball game. I always tell them that it's going to be highs and lows, and sometimes we do let that affect us. So that's been a problem with us. But 32 minutes, when we play 32 minutes and we're locked in and we're just focused, we're a tough team to beat.
I was going to say, I mean, as one of my coaches used to say, basketball is a game of runs.
It's so cliche, but it's so true.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you saw it against, as we just touched upon, the Harding game, 9 points in the first quarter, then 31 straight. I mean,
yeah, I think we were down 13 points in the first quarter in that game, and then I think we won by like 30. So you never know.
So I want to ask you about some of your biggest factors and what you think is key in winning a championship this year.
So the last thing I just said about us understanding about highs and lows, and when the lows come, to stay together and be that family, be that unit. That's the number one factor for us. It was last year, it is this year. Just to understand that there's going to be highs and lows, but you got to play through it. That's one. 2 is obviously for us is rebounding. So we need to make sure that we're either even or up on the glass. And then we've done a really good job assist to turnover ratio. And I think if we continue that, if you don't turn the ball over, another cliche is you turn the ball over, that's a shot you didn't get to take. So I always tell the kids that. So that's a major thing, assist to turnover ratio as well. But I think also just having that, that mindset that whether we're home, whether away, no matter who we're playing, you just have to worry about yourself. I'll go give them the scouting report of what our team is, because any good coach is going to scout us anyways. But it's a matter of us. If we still do what we are usually successful at doing, then that's all that matters.
I agree completely. Kind of same thing, but just how last season, as we mentioned earlier, you fell in the semifinals for states and the NVL. So I know you've kind of touched upon keys, but how do you think as a coach, I mean, what do you need to see to kind of break through that hump and get maybe a championship or just advance to the finals and both and continue to, just get better every year in your coaching career?
Well, we just need to know that, as far as this year goes, we just need to know that there's not going to be any easy games in these tournaments. The NVL tournament, obviously, and then the state tournament, like I said, we're in Division III now. We're going to play bigger schools than us. So we got to have that mindset that we got to come out ready to play every single night, which we usually do. There's been some nights we started slow and then turn it on. But as long as we're not playing St. Paul, we usually come out. I don't know what it is. They're beating us twice this year.
Yeah, I was going to say.
They're a good team, don't get me wrong.
They are a good team, but you had them at home up 16-20. And then,
I know. And then that's kind of that, and that was one of the games where, like I said, that we kind of came unglued when they made a run. You know what? And if we didn't, then that game would have been different. But we kind of came unglued. That we were our own worst enemy in that game.
so are there any, because I know you're such an experienced team, as you said. I mean, you have guys like Injured Mike, Joey, Robbie, like just that have been on the team for the past, well, at least a year. Do you have any players though that you are looking to kind of step up and elevate when you enter the NVL playoffs and state tournaments?
Yeah, so we have our starting five, obviously, that we've relied on all year, and then we have Cooper Harmling, who was our sixth man. We basically have six starters. You know, he's filled in and started a bunch of games, and he gets starters minutes. But then the next kid in line that's been playing well that we're really going to need, I think, to step up in these tournaments is Shane White. He's a kid that's been getting more minutes, and he just, you know, and that may sound like it's pressure on him, but it's not. It's just he needs to go in there and take some of those minutes, get some boards for us, score when he has opportunities. And I thought he did a tremendous job of that in the Ansonia game. You know, he hit a couple threes, and then I think we got a steal where Joey found him quick under the hoop and a quick 5 points, you know, just like that. And then it went from there. But he's going to be that, because, you know, when you get into these tournaments, and even during a year, the rotation is about 7, 8 guys, as long as you're out of foul trouble. So he would be 7. And another kid that we're going to need to see some minutes out of that has also produced when he's gotten the chances as like a TJ Lester. He's more of an energy guy. Kid that's going to play defense, rebound the ball for you, bring you a lot of energy, take some charges, which he did it in the Ansonia game as well. But that's a rotation that, yeah, those are the 2 kids that are going to really kind of need to step up, down the stretch and come postseason time, which they can and they have.
I agree. I mean, there's only so much you can do, especially when some of the NVL teams, they'll see you twice, at least once, and they kind of know who are the players they got to watch out for and kind of, I guess, prepare for matchups. So to have kind of those spark plugs or like microwaves come in and offer you some good minutes is going to be very key. So I want to finish up here with something that I heard. I heard you like to predict occupations for some of the players you have coached. If you got maybe an example or want to elaborate a little bit on that.
I do. So in years past at the banquet, I've always kind of given out occupations. I tell them I like to play guidance counselor, and then I'll give them an occupation that I think that they should partake in, and I'll tell them, like, I'll tell the parents a little story as to why I thought that. So it is something that I've done throughout the years. Yeah. So you're putting me on the spot for one of them right now. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, maybe it doesn't need to be a kid this year, but maybe a past one or something like that.
Okay, so I've had kids in the past where this is something I'm sure I've had better ones, but this is one that comes up where I've had kids that maybe would take a flop on a charge, or go up to a ref and try and sell a call. And I would say they have a career in being an actor, or maybe getting an Academy Award or something like that. Or I've had kids that like to mix it up, or maybe had some anger issues, and it would be the nicest kid ever, and then would have an anger issue on the court or something like that. And I would tell them that maybe they could be like the Incredible Hulk in the next Marvel movie or something like that. So it was little things like that. I usually have to sit down and think about it. So that was kind of on the spot for that one. But
well, I wanted to kind of wrap everything up on a lighter note. So, I mean, just really quickly, what do you expect to? Because you have 3 games left in the season.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 1 more home game, 2 more on the ways, makeup. Then you got states, NVL. I guess if there's throughout the interview, if there's one, I guess, message that you want to kind of portray about this season, and as you get ready for states, what would that be? I was going to try to say one word, but I don't even know. That might put too much of a cap on that. So what would the biggest, I guess, message be for as you get ready?
Stay hungry and stay consistent. I mean, we've been 7-2 down the stretch in the last 9, and there's 2 losses for St. Paul. But so just stay hungry and stay consistent. We're getting to the light at the end of the tunnel, and if we can finish out the way we want to finish out, then we're set up nicely when it comes to tournament time. And whatever happens tournament time, bottom line is this team the last 2 years has been amazing. And these guys that we've talked about have been a part of this for the last 2 years, so they have their stamp on this program for forever now.
I like it. Stay hungry and stay consistent. Well, I want to thank you for joining us, as well as the Seymour community for tuning in and watching us. As of now, we have our last stream this Friday, actually tomorrow, senior night. Big night for you guys. I want to thank you for joining us. Thank you to all of you guys who've been supporting us through the stream, and we will see you guys Friday night.
Thanks again. You guys do a great job.
Thank you.